When you dance, what do you think about? How your body feels or what it looks like? Do you follow the music or listen to your body rhythms? Think about your favorite dancing memory. Where were you? What were you thinking about? And what did it feel like? Hi, I'm Chetana, and last year I built a dance technology system as part of my master thesis that focused on bringing the emphasis away from the visual aspect of dance and to the experience and the body rhythms of the dancer. The system allows the music that is being danced to be controlled by the breathing of one or more dancers. In the initial experiment, I explored whether two dancers who danced in a dark space without touching or seeing each other could still feel a strong connection to their bodies and the other dancer with the help of my system. It was an interesting experiment with lots of results about the possibilities such an emphasis shift and system could create. I wanted to continue my exploration with the system, so I decided to use it myself for 15 minutes every day for an extended period of time to see if and how this changed my experience with the system and my relationship with dance, my body, and breathing. I knew that this wouldn't be easy to keep up, but what I didn't expect was how hard it would be to start. Logistics are difficult, and moving when you haven't in a while is difficult. Not focusing on the visual is difficult, especially in this situation where I was both the subject and the person planning the experiment and this video. How do you separate the visual when you know the final product will be so visual? I had to break away from thinking about what silhouettes would look better and just think about what I would feel comfortable moving in. Moving in close to silence, focusing on your breathing, keeping your eyes closed, creating and being in a vulnerable space is difficult. Figuring out the time of day that feels best, that lends itself to movement, that provides comfort is difficult. I really wanted to just throw myself into it, but it really took some time. It was a good reminder to me that just because something makes sense and is easy in your head doesn't always mean that it's going to go that way. And you need to be open to adapting, changing, and allowing yourself room to keep trying till it works, even if it takes longer and more than you expect. Especially in a situation like this where I was doing an exploratory project, you could never really know how it's going to go till you start. Once I managed to really start and get into a sort of rhythm, I realized I was still very much thinking about what I was doing. I was planning and imagining what it would look like. I constantly wondered what would happen when I ran out of things to do. Repetition was another concern. It is so satisfying in the body to do the same little move over and over, with your muscles feeling it a little more and a little differently each time. I used to aim for range and diversity while choreographing for performance, and I felt a need to break away from that in this setting. I had to make sure I was listening to my body in that moment and not my brain thinking about what it might look like in the future. Another fun thing was at the end of each session, I was always conscious of my breathing for a while after I was done. It was hard to switch to breathing involuntarily again, and it was a really interesting feeling. When I started out, I really wanted to make sure I danced every single day with no gap. But I ended up having to skip a few days because I started this project right after I recovered from COVID and when I had a lot of other in-person work with people. So there were some days where I was just too mentally and physically exhausted to dance and be present. Initially, when I skipped a day, I felt a lot of guilt and negative emotions towards myself and my body because it felt like I had failed and I wasn't capable. But then I also remembered that the whole point of this experiment was to listen to your body, and sometimes it's just too much, but it's okay to take breaks as long as you keep going. The day after a break was always a great one, and it was a great release at a time when I needed it. My body did a lot more on its own. My face muscles also stretched and let out emotion. I was doing a lot of slow movement in the beginning, but I started allowing myself the space to really move aggressively and in a way that almost felt ugly, but my body seemed to be calling for it. I noticed some movements that happened that I had never done previously, and that made me less scared of the idea of doing this every day because it felt like the movements would come even when I couldn't think of any. I don't know if it was because of this, but around day 4, I started feeling more creative than I have in a long time. I finally had the urge to sing, move, and make again. It really seemed like movement was finally becoming fun. Letting myself have fun with it was the best change that happened around day 5. Experimenting and playing helped me feel lighter. I also found myself trying different types of breaths, different types of moves, and allowing my body to do what it felt like. First, it felt monotonous, dancing to the same sounds over and over. I caught myself wishing that it was more dynamic, like in other songs, where you release your body to the music and the music carries you. This, in some ways, is better though. It's more meditative, not as noisy, and more intentional. I've learned that I like my fingers and toes and wrists and ankles and moving them. I never got to do this much while I was performing or dancing because small movements aren't great for the stage. So exploring these small movements has been a joy, and over again with repetition. I felt myself smiling again. I was really intrigued by how my face was contorting itself and taking part in the activity. It's something I have previously noticed and been self-conscious about, but it is very involved in how my body feels. And I like how moving my face makes me feel more like my body and mind and myself are strongly connected. Halfway through, at around day 8 of dancing and day 10 of the project itself, and all I had to say is routine is hard. It's just 15 minutes a day, but 15 minutes of moving first, stretching, setting everything up, finding space, testing light, feeling like it may not be great, and then having to move while already being tired from a whole day. It does make me feel good though, that's for sure. It's hard to start, but there's something so freeing about the space that is finally created. Eyes closed and limbs flailing. Sometimes with control and sometimes without, but who cares? Control has always been a big focus of dance for me. Make it bigger, more energy, more precise, expand, but always with control. Once you lose the control, you lose the beauty, you lose the grace. So letting go of that control feels a lot more freeing than I imagined, I think. And it's introducing me really to another aspect of the non-visual beauty of dancing. After a few days of dancing without much thinking and letting go of control, I felt my movements moving back to old Indian classical dance movements, things I learned when I was younger. It's funny to me because I always saw myself as more of a hip-hop, hardcore, more sexy or badass kind of dancer. This is what I did a lot when I was growing up with dance. Big, strong, hard-hitting movements to make an impact. One reason I did this was because, of course, it has always been this kind of dancing that made me feel powerful and good. So I assumed that was my natural tendency when moving, to be strong and dominating. Another reason, however, that I didn't really notice till recently was the association that seemed to exist between grace and vulnerability and a certain kind of body type and ability. Contemporary dancers and ballet dancers are stronger, more flexible, have smaller chests, are slender, and are already more graceful. This always made it very difficult for me to consider publicly dancing vulnerably and softly because I have always felt like my body isn't a graceful one to a viewer. This experiment has allowed me to dance softly, just for myself, without even having to watch and see if it looks soft, because I know that it feels soft and vulnerable, and that's really what matters. I feel exposed in the best way, even with the lights dimmed. I don't feel like I have to make things bigger or stronger and with control. I can just make things smaller, softer, and with emotion, and it's still good enough. Overall, I danced for 16 days in a 20-day period, and apart from it just being an interesting experience for me personally, I definitely think it had an impact. I was more aware of my breathing at many other points in the day, even when I wasn't moving or dancing, and I do think this made me recognize and remember that I am a whole body. In general, but even more nowadays, with so much working online, I seem to only really notice or engage with my body when I'm doing something very active or physical. It felt nice to feel like, yes, I am this whole body, this whole interconnected set of systems, even when I'm just working on my laptop. I'm not sure how long this will last, now that I've stopped dancing every day, but I think the thought at least will come to me more often now because of this experience. With respect to dance, I think the experiment really made me question and reflect on my relationship with dance and everything that I took for granted there for the last 15 and more years. I realized that perhaps it wasn't just that I love to dance and that's all. Sometimes I don't love to dance. Sometimes it is difficult to do. In some ways, I have held myself back while dancing because of restrictions I placed on myself due to what I saw around me. I realized how much of a factor the visual of dance really is for me, and not necessarily in a bad way. I also realized how much I enjoy just being in a space where I can switch the world off and be aware of and engaged with myself. When you dance, what do you think about? How your body feels or what it looks like? When was the last time you felt truly aware of and connected to your body?